Oh yeah, well, obviously we reviewed the game and it's clearly disappointing, and there's been a lot of criticism, I guess. But as a playing group, we're trying to ignore the outside pressures from the media. We've accepted, in particular, the criticism from our supporters, but I think they would want us to really focus on this week, and we need to bounce back as a footy club.
So what went wrong in your review? What did you find? Because as you said, plenty of people had their view on what went wrong. What, as players, did you find went so wrong?
I think clearly our urgency and competitiveness wasn't up to the standard that we'd expect, and it didn't reflect particularly our performance in training and pre-season. And Port Adelaide were clearly much more prepared mentally, and their game style and how they executed just put us on the back foot from the first minute. So and we didn't respond and didn't bounce back from that, which is really disappointing.
How does that happen after all the pre-season training, all the meetings, all the reviews of last season? How does that happen?
I'm not quite sure. I don't really have an answer for it, but I would think the pressures of a round one game, you can't really replicate that. And as the coach said, we probably didn't really see it coming in terms of the performances within our training and the intensity that we trained at throughout pre-season. So that's something we've addressed this week, and really working to come prepared to compete against Essendon on Saturday night.
Did the coach think there was any complacency at all, considering Port were in a similar position to you last year and you were playing at home? Was it just an assumption you were going to do enough to get over the top of them?
No, not at all. We were, from my opinion, we prepared as good as we could. I think it came down to individually. We didn't bring that competitive spirit. However, there was no complacency at all. We were well aware of the form that Port were in, and clearly they were wanting to respond from their year last year, and yeah, they were really impressive on the weekend.
Jack Watts was quoted as saying in the paper this morning that the club lacks an on-field leader. How do you respond to that?
I think what he was trying to say was on-field leadership as a whole. I think there's 22 players in the team, and obviously on the weekend we didn't have 22 contributors, and I think that's what he was referring to. And we need 22 players to stand up and take some responsibility for their own individual performance, and on the weekend we didn't have that. So I think what Jack's saying is we need more leadership across the board to step up and assist the boys that are leading the way.
Is it possible that there's nothing you can do to improve, that you're just not good enough?
No, I don't agree with that.
What does it say about the group, the two first gamers who remain the best players on the weekend?
Yeah, well, I think it's a credit to them because they obviously came prepared, but and they performed, which is what we want. But yeah, I think a lot of players would feel very disappointed, and it's hard to explain each individual why they didn't perform on the day. But I guess that those younger players came in, and the expectation was that they do perform, and they did that really well. So we're looking to bounce back this week, which is the main focus for the group. As I said, and we're trying to ignore all the external stuff and just internally drive ourselves as a group to perform as a team.
Sorry, do you have any doubts about the track that the club's on after that performance?
Me personally, no, not at all, and I'm guarantee you that the team doesn't either. We totally believe the direction that the coaches are taking us in, and yeah, it's just executing that on game day, which we haven't been able to do. But it's hard to explain that to you guys because you haven't seen behind the scenes, but there's been significant improvement, but that hasn't obviously publicly outlaid itself in our performances in the game.
So how do you think the team has improved from, say, round one last year when you lost at home to Brisbane?
Well, I think there's, like I said to you, you haven't been able to witness that over the pre-season, which is something that it's hard for me to portray that to you, and I can say it as much as I like, but I think there's been significant improvement as a club in terms of professionalism and how we train and the intensity and urgency that we train at. It's now just pulling that all together and putting that out on display in a game where it's most needed.
Do you think there are an element of nerves going into a game possibly? You say how well you've been training and high intensity at training. Do you think maybe you go out in the field and there's an expectation on the club and nerves kick in?
Possibly, yeah. That could definitely be a factor, but I think that's a requirement of an AFL player to be able to deal with that. And if that was a factor on the weekend, clearly we have to continue to work to become, I guess, mentally resilient to deal with that, and then to put all those, I guess, factors aside and to deliver with performance.
Can you take us behind the scenes in any way? Has there been perhaps a game style shift that might be taking a bit longer to get used to? Is there any sort of reason like that it just didn't quite click yet, but it will in time?
Not really. This is again another tough one to explain, because the execution within throughout pre-season was what we were after. I guess it came down to performing and putting it out under the pressures of an AFL game, and we just weren't able to deliver that on the weekend. So that's obviously something that we've addressed this week, and particularly the competitive spirit and the urgency is something that we need to bring within what the coaches are trying to implement with structures and game plans and that.
Are you gutted as players? Have you made a stand with each other that you will bounce back and won't accept what happened on the weekend?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt we're gutted. Yeah, it was for me personally. It was one of the worst losses that I'd played in, just due to I was expecting us to perform at a level that I saw us with the improvement throughout pre-season. So yeah, there's no doubt we're gutted, but at the same time we're trying to move on. And it's one game of a long season, and the great thing is, which you hear all the time, is you got another chance to bounce back this week. So. We've got a big challenge against a good team who are in great form on Saturday night in Essendon, and we're just looking forward to trying to bring all the stuff that I've explained to you. That competitiveness and urgency and intensity is what we need, because I think if we do bring that and what we've shown throughout pre-season, there's no reason why we can't be in the game.
How do you go about How do you go about regaining that competitive spirit? I mean, it's easy to say you need it, but how do you actually get it?
Well, I've seen it throughout pre-season, so it's not as if we don't have it. It's just, as I said, it obviously comes down to the individual in terms of how you prepare as a player, and being able to, I guess, outlay that within a game. And then the more players we have bringing that competitiveness and that urgency, the better the team's going to obviously execute, and and then hopefully the results come after that. But on the weekend, the clear reason was we didn't have 22 players compete with the urgency required. The coaches said it, that we only had 3 or 4 or 5 players reach a benchmark performance. So that's not good enough as a footy team, and we need 22 contributors.
Thanks,